Under state law in Pennsylvania, mail-in ballots cannot be opened or tallied prior to Election Day. Election experts say that could cause a delay in projecting the state's winner. Kathy Boockvar joins us now. She previously served as the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Kathy, good to see you. Thanks for being here. As someone who stood outside the Philadelphia Convention Center for a week after Election Day, I very much identify with the question on everyone's minds, which is, when will we know the results? And Pennsylvania obviously is the key battleground state to watch this time around. Do you have any idea about how long it could take this time around?
Thanks so much for having me on the show. Well, I think there's a really important distinction. There's two different issues. One is when the ballots can be largely counted, and the other is how close the election is, which will then determine how long it takes till it's called, right? So I think that, in 2020, the overwhelming majority of ballots were counted by Thursday night into Friday morning. And the good news is our election officials have now had 4 more years of practice. They've bought more equipment. They know how much staffing they need. And arguably one of the most important things is we're no longer in a global pandemic, right? So there's not all the restrictions that we had then. So I think the ballots will be counted more quickly, which may mean that the overwhelming majority of ballots are counted by the end of the day, Wednesday, instead of Thursday. However, we need to keep in mind that if it's really close, then the provisional ballots that will still be being counted, overseas and military ballots will still be being counted. And if it's so close, there's an automatic recount, that will take a couple of weeks. So nobody knows on election night who wins or loses. What we hope to do is count the ballots securely, accurately, and then after that, as quickly as humanly possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned in 2020, of course, there was a pandemic going on. A lot of what we saw was unprecedented. How does, now compare to then? I mean, obviously, it seems like there were potentially more mail-in ballots then because of COVID. But how would you make the comparisons?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I think the key, there probably will be fewer vote by mail ballots because, like you said, we were in a global pandemic then. And keep in mind, by the way, that 2020 was actually the first year that Pennsylvanians could all vote by mail with no excuse. Prior to 2020, we had absentee voting only for a limited number of voters. So if you look back to 2016, the 2016 general, in the entire state of Pennsylvania, there were only 260,000 mail ballots. Fast forward to 2020, and we had 2.6 million mail voters. So literally 10 times as many ballots to count. So obviously, it's going to take significantly more time. I think this year, because we're not in a global pandemic, thank God, we won't have 2.6 million, but we might still have 2 million. And that still takes time because as you may know, and I think you might have mentioned this right before I came on, the law in Pennsylvania doesn't allow county election officials to start canvassing ballots until 7 a.m. on election day. So, and by the way, 45 or so other states allow their election officials to start before election day. So if you have 2 million ballots and you can't start till election day, that's going to take time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I remind people often is that you can't even open up the ballots to begin processing them until Election Day. That's a state law, but that could have been changed, right? Do you know what the opposition was?
Yes, I know exactly what the opposition was. And the Republican leadership in the Senate has, for the last 4 years, refusing to change this law. And how many times do you have a problem, right, an issue like delay in results, that's 100% fixable, 100% resolvable by allowing these ballots to be able to be pre-processed ahead of Election Day? It's literally supported by every stakeholder in the process, candidates, parties, elected officials, everybody wants this. And it literally would cost nothing. And the Republican Senate still refused to pass it. And the only explanation is because they want the delay. They want the delay because they take that time to infuse doubt and suspicion conspiracy theories, which is what happened in 2020. We're already seeing it now. And this could be resolved by this simple law to allow this pre-processing ahead of Election Day.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, we will be watching Pennsylvania so closely for so many reasons. Kathleen Boockvar, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thank you.